I think this is the first time that I'm going to talk about a book that I didn't finish. I spent a lot of time reading Quicksilver by Neal Stephenson in 2015. I stopped reading it. It says here on Goodreads, December 28th of 2015. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I wrote this about it as a review. 11 months is just too long for 165 pages in one book, right? I couldn't finish it. I'm sorry. I really have trouble putting books down without finishing them. I also do my best to earnestly effort to complete books that were shared with me as gifts. Sorry, Carrie. This one is massive and loaded with somewhat interesting historical background that is a nightmare for a slow reader like me. If you can scan with comprehension, this thing will be a grand achievement for you. I take a lot of time to digest things, and it's just plain dense. I don't think it was a bad recommendation for me content-wise, but I'm partially resentful that this book has made people think that I don't read anymore or that I've given up on Goodreads. I haven't. Quicksilver is work. I have no doubt that it will be satisfying work for epic readers of historical fiction that enjoy science and stories about the origins of our sophisticated studies on everything that we study. For me, its entertainment value was low. You will like it if you are patient with it and have faith that the story will materialize. I was too patient. I am too faithless. I am moving on. So I decided that I wanted to talk about this on the series of reviews just because I spent so long trying to read this book. And I mentioned in earlier reviews with big books, long books like this, that they're sometimes kind of difficult for me in the same way that series books can be difficult for me, that because I feel that I'm a slow reader. I think that I'm actually not a slow reader. I think I just was giving too much time to books that don't light up the world for me, because there are books that go really fast too. And like I said about this book, this isn't a bad recommendation for me content-wise. I actually, in a few years down the line, did read and finish a Neal Stephenson book. Neal Stephenson writes very, very long books. That one was very long as well. I think the thing to focus on is that my learning taking away from this is to spend time with the types of books that you like. And they go quicker, and it's a much better experience for everyone involved. Quicksilver is, I mentioned it here, that it's going to be satisfying work for readers of historical fiction in particular. It is extremely detailed and very interesting about those types of things, about science and the origins of science within culture. It is probably the best historical fiction that I've read in terms of quality. It's just really not for me because it didn't have the sort of momentum to take me through the pages. I'll have other comments about the later Neal Stephenson book that I read, which is called Reamde, Reamde, which talks about why some of the bulk that's in his writing is difficult for me. But again, if you are quick, if you can scan and get comprehension, Neal Stephenson is probably a fantastic writer for you. For me, it is just not the right fit. And I mentioned that this is the first one that I'm going to talk about that I didn't finish. There's other books in my Goodreads list that I didn't finish, and I have an entire shelf for books that I didn't finish. There may be ones that are somewhat profound enough to bring up and do reviews here on this channel. This is one of those, but some of them I'm just going to skip over because they might have been either too difficult, too uninteresting, or the stories aren't really interesting enough. Maybe at the end of everything, when I get to where I am currently in reading, maybe I'll just do a quick video on all of the different books that are in there that I didn't finish on that shelf. That might be interesting too. I'm not sure yet. This one is one of those that even though I didn't finish it, it had such a profound impact on me because I spent 11 months with it. You can tell when I say that I stopped reading on December 28th that it was somewhat of maybe it was even a New Year's resolution for me to say, okay, I'm going to move on and read some other stuff next. When I get to the next review, when we talk about what's coming up next, you'll see how I sort of compensated or did something different about the way that I was reading after this. It's not a terrible book. It's just a very specific book for a very specific audience. Stephenson lovers, you will probably love this. But if you're working to find your attraction to Neal Stephenson, I don't think Quicksilver is the right place to start. I read Quicksilver, or I tried to read Quicksilver by Neal Stephenson in 2015. I put it down after 165 pages in 11 months, but I did give it 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Till next.